Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about this air cooler coming from Deepcool, known as the AK620. Before I begin, I'd like to thank our local distro, Tech Dynamic, who have actually loaned me this unit and to share my experience with you. I'll first start off with the unboxing of this heatsink itself, then followed by the accessory introduction, and to show you how I mount this heatsink on the motherboard itself. Let's get into it. Inside this box, it contains... It's a good thing that Deepcool have actually made use of recycled cardboards to do the packaging. And inside this box itself, it contains the accessory package at the side and the heatsink itself. A very massive heatsink with two sponge that protects the heatsink itself. Oh, the fans are pre-installed on the heatsink itself. A nice touch. Inside this accessory box itself, it contains all these accessories itself. They are nicely packed, as in like accordingly to AMD, accordingly to Intel, and the backplate itself, and the rest of the accessories. I'll talk about it later. Right now I'll start off with the heatsink itself. Now, the heatsink is pretty massive and there are pattern layers over here, pretty nice. Then this is the back. I believe this is nickel plated. Yep. And there are a total of 6 heat pipe that channels from the heat to your water block, to the block itself, and it will disperse to the fins on both ends. And the fan itself will push all the hot air off from the fins itself. Looking at the top itself, right, I believe this is detachable. See, it's quite easy. So if there are dust collecting inside, maybe not, you can just clean it. And as mentioned earlier on, the fans are all pre-installed with this clips, fan clips. And it comes with a instruction manual. I've gone through the manual itself. It's pretty well written. All the instructions on how you do the mountings for the Intel and for the AMD motherboard. Now I'll start off with the Intel first. As you can see here, right, the top section over here, these are meant for your 2011 and 2066, where you make use of this, the bracket itself, and this. Then if you're using the normal Gen 11, Gen 12, or not Gen 12, sorry, Gen 9 all the way to Gen 11 itself, you make use of this. And of course you need to use the retention, the backplate itself. And how it's actually been mounted, assuming I don't have the 2011 and the 2066, so I will show you on the 1150 to 1156 and also the 1200. Now how you mount is that this back plate itself, right, will be mounted at the back of your motherboard with the screws going through the holes. So imagine that there's a motherboard that is seated right in front of this backplate itself. All you need to do is to put the spacer. Now, this spacer here, right, does have a protective layer, so make sure that it's facing downwards, where the screw threads is protruding upwards. So all you need is just to screw all this. Then once you're done, right, it's time to mount the bracket. Now you won't go wrong, as there's indication of where you should be mounting it. See the arrow over here? So it's pointing inwards. So on both ends itself, right, it will show you that you should be mounted this way and not this way. This will be incorrect if you mount it this way, as your heatsink will not sit properly at the location over here. So you need to change over and do this. Then you screw or tighten the bracket with this bolt screws. Once you're done, right, you will be able to mount your heatsink on this bracket itself. So just to show you the alignment of the heatsink, see over here, these two ends. So imagine that this is actually the whole motherboard, so it will align to the screws, as you can see over here. Let me just lift this up. See? Besides all this Intel and AMD brackets they have provided, you are given a splitter. This is a fan splitter for you to daisy chain two of your fans over here at the end. Clip to this splitter. Then once you have actually done that, right, at this end over here, this is for you to plug to your motherboard CPU fan header. And it comes with this big screw, as I believe you will need to screw your heatsink to the brackets over here. It's pretty long, and it comes with a thermal paste. To mount the brackets to the motherboard itself, first thing you will need to unscrew all the 4 screws, which I've already done. Then take out the bracket. Next, these are the standoffs that provide in the package. Now, do note that this are the protective itself, and this should be protruding out. So facing the black protection plastic to the bottom, screw it down. See? You just need to hand tight it. Once it's secured, next will be your brackets. Now, if you take a look at the brackets itself, right, there are also arrow signs where it says to the CPU, pointing to the CPU, which is here. So do it this way. If you're going to do it the other way, right, though you can sit, but you will have a problem to sit your heatsink to these 2 screws here. So make sure that you put the correct direction. As you can see over here, the 2 arrows. Once you have placed into position, make use of these 4 bolts to tighten them, and to secure the brackets. Again, hand tight it first. Once done, make use of your screwdriver. Do not over tighten it, just a bit to feel the tension, and this is secure. Let me just zoom out. Next, you will need to feed your heatsink block to the brackets itself. Now, before you feed this to the IHS itself, make sure you remove off this sticker over here. Then apply thermal paste. Now, for illustration purposes, I'm not going to remove this. I'm just going to show you. Then face it down. But before you do so, right, because the screws is actually beneath the fan itself, you will need to take out this fan. So an easy way to do it is your thumb holding over here, then pull, and this is released. Do it at the same side, the other side, and this is released. Once it's released, right, you can pull out the fan. Next will be housing the heatsink. Now do note the direction of the cables of the fans. How you want to orientate it is either here or above. Now it happens that my CPU fan header is at the top, so I will be placing this way instead, with the cables facing up and not down. Once you have actually done that, right, align the heatsink, the screws itself, onto the bracket, then tighten it. When you're tightening this, right, do not tighten only one side, do it alternately, as in top, bottom, in small motion. Probably I would say turn 2 rounds and go to the other side, turn 2 rounds, again the other side, turn 2 rounds and turn 2 rounds. Reason being, right, why you are doing this, because you want to have a equal pressure. Okay, assuming that this is your IHS, okay, which is your your CPU itself, and you want to sit your block with equal pressure. So by doing bit by bit, you will be even pressure. If you were to do one side only and to press, or should I say to screw the other side, you might have some air bubbles within the pressure itself, and it might misalign, so that will affect the temperature. So take note on this. Now earlier on I mentioned about the cable arranging, that you should be facing this, I should be facing this upwards instead of downwards. Now the problem is that you will need to know the orientation of the fans too, because this is the front, that is the rear, so you want the cool air from the front and push to the back. So having to say so, right, make sure that your frame over here, this is actually where the air comes out, and this is where the air draws in. So make sure that you place at the correct direction. So with this, say, right, I need to remove both and to do the correct adjustment. And this is air in, this is air out, this is air in. So I will just crimp it. Now another problem that I face is that, having to say so, right, my fan over here is actually hitting my RAMs, so I can't really sit this fan properly. I might need to change the orientation. I'll first start off with the center, which is easier. Then I'll clip it. Now instead of placing to the front, right, whereby my RAMs is hitting the fan itself, I will have to turn this over to put it at the back over here. There are plenty of space over here, so not a problem. So as mentioned, the orientation of your cables, I am going to place it over here. And if I were to put it this way, right, it's wrong because it's actually going against the airflow. I will need to switch the clips. So have the direction correct first, which is the cable is over here, and you should be pushing air to the rear, where your this are the frame here, right? It tells me that the air is coming out from here. Then I will put on the clips. Placing the clips is pretty easy. Now right after this, right, I will show you the specification of this fans itself. In fact, it's rated 0.12 ampere, and the max RPM is 1850 RPM. And on my screen itself, on the top right, you might see all the specification. of the whole unit itself. You can pause this video and to see all the specification. This is done. The next thing I'll need to do is to daisy chain these two fans together with this splitter. Then at this end, I will clip it to my CPU fan header. This will give you a proper explanation on the height of the heatsink itself from the top and touches to the motherboard itself is 167. If you have a case that does not have a clearance of 170mm in depth, right, you might not be able to close your side panel or your tempered glass. And looking at the front, right, where I have the problem where my rams exceeded 50mm. So that's why my fan is like sitting on the rams itself. In fact, it's protruding out much more. So do take note on this. Probably low profile rams, you'll be able to fit the fan in front. And the gap over here from the motherboard and to the first fin stack itself is 38mm. At the second diagram over here, right, the whole length from the front to the back is 135mm, and the width from the top to the bottom is 125mm. Oh, speaking of which, right, I forgot to mention that at the rear itself, right, so long as your VRM or your IO plate is not higher than 45mm, you should be able to slot a rear fan, not a problem. If anything above 50, right, then you're gonna have a problem. You will not be able to actually fit the fans itself, so take note on this. The overall experience of mounting this air cooler coming from Deepcool, the AK620, is very pleasant. Though I have some hiccups on the rams itself where I can't fit the fan, this is easily rectified by placing at the rear as there are lots of clearance. Now, some of you might be asking, does this heatsink support the 12th gen Intel processor? Yes, it does. You will need to get this 1700 bracket additionally. Then you can use this heatsink itself. I will be testing the thermal performance on this. I will be testing the thermal performance of this heatsink itself, but that will be on another video. But do watch out for that video because I will be comparing this heatsink with this heatsink itself coming from Scythe, known as the Fuma 2 Rev B, and the ThermalRight Peerless Assassin 120 Black. So if you guys do not want to miss out the results on all this heatsinks comparison, do remember to subscribe and to hit on the notification bell button. Till the next video, take care, goodbye, see ya.